Hello everyone and welcome to the series Beautiful Business powered by Xero. My name is Cam Anderson and I'm the Head of Agribusiness and Practice Strategy for Xero. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us today in a slightly different format to the traditional field days. Here at Xero we strongly believe in the value of bringing beautiful business to the farming and agricultural industry. And in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the agricultural industry is a pivotal part of New Zealand's economic recovery. Fran O'Sullivan from the NZ Herald recently called it the beating heart of the New Zealand economy. So it's even more important that we support Field Days online this year. At Xero, we're very lucky to have long-standing partnerships with all of New Zealand's main banks, and we work closely with their agri teams around the country to support their farming clients and rural managers with leading financial technology. We know that the Rural Bank Manager is a critical part of a farm's business advisory team, and during this afternoon's session we're hoping to tap into the specialist knowledge of our panellists and tackle some of the topical issues facing the rural sector in today's new normal. We are joined today by Field Days banking partners from left to right. Dave Hanley, BNZ Agribusiness, GM Agribusiness, Sarah Dobson, Figured Head of Strategic Partnerships, James Gardner, ASB Head of Rural and Corporate, and Anne-Marie Avis, ANZ Regional Manager of Commercial and Agri. Again, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. I'd like to start with a bit of a topical question, and it's about the resilience of the farming sector through the COVID-19 crisis and its potential to rebound strongly. Anne-Marie, from a banking perspective, do you think that the industry is in good shape and able to grow over the next year or two?
Thanks, Cam, and firstly thanks for the opportunity to be on the panel today. It's a real privilege to be here. We know how important Field Days is in the agri calendar, so it's great that we've had the opportunity for the virtual event today. So COVID, it's been an extraordinary time across all industries, and we've seen a lot of disruption in a number of industries. But looking across our customer base, those who've been involved in food, whether it's farming, growing, processing or exporting, have seen huge opportunity through this COVID experience, and it really rests on the fact that New Zealand and the world still need to eat. And New Zealand's got a really good brand internationally with the quality of the food and the exports that it has been taking to the markets. And with our COVID-free status at the moment, albeit we've got some cases at the border which we're managing to contain, but our general COVID-free status stands us in really good stead for strengthening that brand internationally. Through COVID, there's been a real focus from consumers to know more about the source of their product, and a real focus on health. And some real questions around, natural, authentic and sustainable products. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a profile in the Herald. Mark Hiddleston, our Managing Director of Commercial and Agri, spoke and talked to a couple of case studies of customers that had done well through COVID. And one was a seaweed bionutrients company, AgriSea, who once they were deemed essential and were able to keep producing, saw great demand both domestically and internationally based on their natural product, and that's an organic fertiliser substitute. And some of that demand was coming from countries like Italy, which were in lockdown, but those consumers were demanding more natural products. The other was zestberry, obviously, that fruit was on the vine at the start of lockdown. There was concern about the ability to pick it, but once they got the essential status and the labour to pick it, it was picked, packed, exported, and they're actually ahead of schedule with those exports. So during COVID, I think one of the biggest Google searches that they saw was people that were looking for fruit with very high vitamin C, and so kiwi fruit sits quite high on the list for that, so they've seen a real benefit from being able to take that health story to the international market. And I think as an industry, if we can help our customers take that story, take that authentic and natural story overseas, then we'll just see that opportunity for New Zealand exporters improve going forward. And as an industry, I think we come onto it later in the panel discussion around sustainability and how we can help our customers in that growth and building in a sustainable business, both economically and environmentally, and telling that story internationally will be really helpful.
I think it's fair to say that the industry has been a bit of a saviour for the economy, and I think it really illustrates the resilience of generations and generations of farmers here to be able to pivot and change to suit not only economic conditions but consumer demand.
Yeah, Cam, I was just going to say, in regards to that question, we conducted a survey earlier this year of our sort of 5,000 agri clients just to get a sense for how they were feeling about their business in the agricultural sector, and we surveyed them pre-COVID, then we also surveyed them post-COVID, and the really interesting stat that we got out of it was that 89% of our farming clients are feeling very positive about the impact or the key role that agriculture will play in the post-COVID recovery, and that was a really pleasing outcome, and that compared to sort of early 50% pre-COVID. So it just shows the level of, I suppose, a great level of confidence that now sort of exists within across the industry in general, which is fantastic. So.
Yeah, that's great. One thing that's critical for agribusiness in today's environment is getting bank ready. And what I mean by that is farmers being able to access capital as and when required. We know that the bank manager plays a pivotal role as an advisor to our farmers, especially when it comes to accessing loans. So I'd sort of like to ask, start with you, Dave. What's your points of view on that?
The first point I'll make is that we've seen a huge effort from our farming clients in recent years around being more bank ready, which is actually really pleasing. And if I think about what our farmers maybe used to provide 3 years ago relative to what we get now, like the level of detail and the information we get is just outstanding. And what that does is it demonstrates that our clients really understand their business, and in turn it means we can help and support our clients with their ambitions. The second point is that I suppose, like any good business, being bank ready means having a plan, and that's no different in farming. So having a plan for our farming clients means having a financial plan, i.e. a budget or a forecast. It means having an environmental plan, and likely a succession plan. And if our clients have those three facets of their business sort of taken care of, it gives them a lot of confidence, and in turn it gives the bank a lot of confidence as well. So it's very much a win-win situation to be bank ready.
And you think that's something that's sort of changed and evolved over more recent times, or?
Absolutely. I'd be keen to hear from the others, but I think in the last 2 or 3 years our clients are really keen and willing to be more bank ready, and it's great for them and it's great for us.
James, did you?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I'd agree with that. We're seeing that as well. It is really critical that our customers and farmers in general actually access all the I suppose the opportunities around them to help them out with with that planning. There is a large range, I suppose, from those that need to continue to do that work. But I think the key is for them to access those professionals that can really help them build their own expertise, but actually support them sort of right now too with that planning and building of plans.
Yeah, I think it's really useful to sort of see what the banking industry is looking at in terms of information from farmers, and really having that sort of sound understanding around scenario planning and forecasting, and what an adverse scenario might actually look like and mean, so that they can actually be equipped to react and deal with those challenges certainly as they arise. So I guess following on from that point, accessing capital is an important aspect of any farming operation, whether looking to expand operations or just get through an adverse season perhaps. Most farmers will have had experience dealing with banks to get loans for support, and this isn't always an easy task. So James, what are some of the key success factors that farmers need to consider when applying for finance, and how can farmers sort of really position themselves with their best foot forward?
I think what Dave's mentioned there around the planning piece is really, really critical. So sort of once they've got that nailed down, it actually comes back to sort of proofing that up with their decision making. And actually whether that is sitting around a kitchen table or at a board level, it is the same around that decision making. If I think about, so use dairy for example, the last year we've had a strong milk price, profitable businesses. So what are the key decisions, and how have those customers and those businesses utilised those profits? Because as you've said there, adverse conditions will come again, and actually there's a lot of talk about COVID. The reality is for the ag sector, in a lot of cases the drought actually had a bigger impact this year. And so with that in mind, there will be something else that comes up. So it is critical that our customers are making the right decisions and actually preparing themselves and their businesses for whatever comes next. And that then does put them on the front foot after they've done all that good work that Dave's talked about, to have that conversation with their banker.
And the continuity, I guess, for business, as far as business continuity goes, it's no different really for a farming operation than what you would do for a commercial operation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think just on that, the key is revisiting your plan, isn't it? You know, things change. You talk about the adversity, and we've gone from a drought to floods in Northland, and farmers are traditionally resilient. They've been facing this, year in, year out. So it's living the plan. It's actually coming back and revisiting it, reforecasting, and the early heads up, I think, to the bankers is really important. So if there's something adverse that they see and they need help with, come to us early and be honest, and we can help work through it.
Yep.
And in terms of helping clients and customers, our farmers in this case, work through that, who do you see sort of being at that management table to help and assist with that?
It's probably a combination of, I think James referred to, it's a combination of a few people. It's the bank manager, it's the accountant, it's the farm advisor, it's whoever the client trusts to bring good, honest views and opinions, and not be afraid to challenge the client, because in essence it's in their best interest as well that they're challenged in a constructive way.
Yeah, and I think, that's something we talk about quite a lot within our businesses around sort of the farming team concept, which is exactly that. So, making sure that the farmer doesn't feel like they're on their own, that they've got multiple experts that, have got a vested interest and passion to want to help support the farmer. So kind of bringing together, the right information with the right experts to help sort of set up for their success is key.
I think too that, Cam, that the word trust there is absolutely critical in that.
Yeah.
That group has to really trust each other and be trusted by the business owner or the farmer, because it's not about cheerleading that meeting. It is about constructive challenge, and sort of all understanding the direction and the goals, and working sort of with a critical mind towards achieving whatever that might be.
Yeah, I think it's really important to create that support network for our farmers to know that they're not in this alone. Last year, Fieldays, our theme was actually communities of purpose. So having the banker, the farm advisor, and the accountant all around the table, basically to create a governance structure that would typically only be available to a larger scale operation, I think is certainly really important. Our farming industry is the backbone of the New Zealand economy. Many of our farms span multiple generations. The current generation is facing tough and unprecedented challenges, which means taking on the family farm through succession may not be as appealing as it once was. What advice are rural managers out there in the field providing to their clients when looking at their options around succession? Anne-Marie, I'll pass to you to kick this one off.
I suppose succession is an emotional topic for everyone involved, and I suppose every situation is different. It's unique. There's different people involved and different dependents. The discussion we had just now around farm advisors is really important, I think, and sort of the three pieces of advice that that our rural managers are taking out. The first is seek advice. And that is there's a whole plethora of people that you can get around the table, but that independent thinking and challenging the structure is really important, but it has to be someone that you trust, because you're opening up your finances and your thinking, and I suppose it's a really business owners and farmers are passionate about the business they've grown and wanting to pass it down in its form. The second would be have a plan, and that's sort of an economic and environment and a sustainability plan, that you have a vision of where you want the business to get to, and then once you've got the people, your dependents on the journey with you, then that's where the banks come in to help with the insights and the structuring to help all of those parties reach the objective. It's not something that it's not a silver bullet that lands overnight. It's a journey, and so I suppose the third piece of advice that we have for our customers is to start early. So it's not we have some that come that they want to do things overnight. It's all sort of the last minute. It's an elephant in a room that's been there for quite a while. So planning early is really important to get everyone on the journey, know where they're heading, and the role that they can play. Doesn't sort of come as a surprise. There's perhaps some business farmers out there with perhaps a bit more debt on the balance sheet than they would like, and I think starting early to address the strength of that balance sheet is useful for when you get to that succession and passing it on to the next generation.
Just the other point I was going to make is that growing up on a farm myself, I think succession planning is quite a different subject when you live on a farm and it's your livelihood relative to a different type of business when you're not living and breathing it. So I know that we had discussions quite early on about, and I've got 3 siblings, about what was the best scenario for mum and dad and for the children and for the farm. So I think to Anne-Marie's point, doing it early, being upfront and honest, but just sitting down and having the conversation. It's not that difficult, but a lot of people actually just sort of put it off because they think it's going to be a bit challenging. So just doing it's probably the main thing.
It is the elephant in the room, and I think the really important bit is about actually getting all of those stakeholders around the table earlier, as you both said,
Correct.
rather than later, when it can be a little bit too late. Another really topical issue at the moment is managing a farm's environmental impact. And there's been a lot of public discussion recently about a farm's sort of social licence to operate. So from a banking perspective, how does the environment factor into your relationship with your farming clients? James?
Yes, certainly. And Cam, we would have all seen prior to COVID, actually just about every front page of every paper had farmers and environment on it. And just because that has gone off the front page certainly doesn't mean it's gone away completely, and undoubtedly it will definitely come back. From a sort of bank's perspective, support is a really big key piece there. There are a lot of different regulations that are either in place or coming, so there is a bit of a lack of clarity as to what expectation is for our customers in the industry generally. But I think, as I say, coming back to that support piece, and not just from banks, but the whole of industry. This is something that everyone needs to steer into, and actually just not rural either. It's urban. I think we are all in this together. And I'm starting to sound like I'm talking on behalf of the country, but actually, it is something that we all need to steer into. Coming back to a sort of a banking perspective, if you like, what's good for our customers is good for us. So we want our businesses to be compliant in the first instance. And actually what we are starting to see is a lot of our customers are actually striving for excellence. And maybe part of that is communicating the story better. I think collectively, the industry can do a better job of informing, if you like, as to exactly what is going on in the industry. I've not met a customer, and I'm sure no one else on the panel here has either, who was not deeply committed and very invested in the environment. It's actually their livelihoods. And we're talking about succession before. One of the key things we often hear when we're talking succession is passing the land or the farm on in a better state than what they took it in. And I think that's critical. From an ASB perspective, we've got a rural compliance loan. So we've got a loan that we that for qualifying projects we do for our customers at cost of funds, so it's an opportunity for them to access capital to help themselves sort of lift up that compliance piece. And actually and Anne-Marie mentioned it earlier, from an industry perspective, all the banks are involved in a sustainable agribusiness finance initiative. So that is us sort of trying to set standards at a farm gate level, which sort of qualify, if you like, for green. That is quite challenging at a farm gate level. It hasn't been done directly before. But again, it speaks really clearly to the industry working together, in support of our customers for this critical piece.
Dave, did you?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to get James's thoughts. I mean, from our perspective, like everyone on the panel, the environmental aspect has become so critically important, more so than ever before for the whole farming sector. So we actually we established a natural capital team sort of 2 years ago, with the purpose really of making sure that our agri managers and our clients were informed and prepared for the changes that were coming, and whether that be regulatory changes around water policy or whether it be the use of nitrogen on farm. We just wanted to make sure we were sort of ahead of the curve. So we've released a few fact sheets around, what does the ETS, for example, mean for your business. So so that's been really key for us, and yeah, we just want to make sure everyone is ahead of the curve as much as they can be.
Yeah, I think we do have, it's a reality that we do have an urban-rural divide, and I think, as you were saying, it's important that we are the voice actually to make people aware of the work in particular that banks are doing in this space to assist the farmers with being compliant and as you said, striving for excellence in that space. So we've talked about a little bit earlier actually how real-time financial insights can help build a really highly functioning farming team. But the most important focus would be how can that sort of actually be achieved in reality. So in recent years we've seen a huge shift to working online and online collaboration through software, which is essentially how we would describe the cloud and the opportunities it presents. So Sarah, one for you. From Figured's perspective, how have you seen the uptake of cloud technologies impact farming relationships and what efficiencies do you think have been created as a result?
Yeah, great question, Cam. Look, I think for all of us in our day-to-day lives, cloud technology is becoming, more and more prominent. We've all got our mobile phones with multiple apps, and kids are running around with their iPads with multiple apps. So, in general day-to-day life, we're seeing that that's just becoming more prominent. And I think with things like COVID, obviously, it's just, accentuating that. But from an agri perspective around technology, we're seeing quite a shift where, in general, farmers are actually really tech savvy already. They're using huge amounts of technology on farm as it is today. What we're starting to see is a bit more of a shift towards that sort of back office use of technology. So what are the things that they can be looking to use rather than perhaps the traditional PC in the back office with multiple spreadsheets and systems? What are the tools that they can start using to really help with that sort of holistic view of how the business is operating and particularly focusing on the financials piece. So we're certainly seeing a shift in that space. And I think the reason for that is just the benefits that sort of the cloud technology can bring in that space. So, the first and most obvious one is around accessibility. So the fact that they don't have to be sitting in the back office, they can be out on the farm and be able to see that information as and when they need it to make those decisions. The fact that obviously with cloud, you're able to connect up multiple different sources of data. So again, it's that kind of holistic view of the farm. So looking at the financials, but overlaying that with other information, production data. There's huge amounts of data that we can connect, and we're really only just sort of starting to kick that off. So that accessibility piece is huge. But again, coming back to sort of the farming team concept, the collaboration that you can apply to when you're using cloud technology is great. So again, we talked about both the farmer, the accountant, the financial advisor, the banker, all being able to look at the same data in real time has huge benefits. But again, also it's not about looking at the same data. There's also the multiple uses for that as well. So it might be that you're looking at it for a tax compliance reason, or it could be that you're doing an end of year review or a bit of a planning session about where you want the business to go, or it could be for a lending decision like what we're talking a lot about today. So again, it's sort of giving the ability to obviously to the rural banker themselves to get that holistic view about what's happening, but also on the flip side, like we've talked about, the farmer themselves getting more of an understanding of what are the different metrics that are being looked at when these decisions are being made about my business, and how can I sort of put my best foot forward. So yeah, look, I think to go back to the question around relationships, I think it's really positive in terms of that collaboration, being able to bring everybody around the same information at the same time. And certainly in terms of those efficiencies pieces, often there will be times where farmers will need access to capital in a short amount of time. So the ability to be able to turn that lending decision around in a more efficient way for both parties is a really beneficial thing.
And I guess the advantage of being on the cloud is that you're there and they're ready to go as soon as that arrives. And you're making decisions that are data-backed.
That's right, yeah, with up-to-date data, absolutely.
I'm kind of keen, this is sort of an open floor question. I'm keen to understand what your respective digital strategies are, just in response to Sarah talking about the available software and technology and what the benefit that sort of provides specifically to your customers. So, Dave.
Well, it's probably quite timely following on from Sarah. We actually have a strategic partnership with Figured that we entered into 4 years ago, and the purpose of that was really, as Sarah pointed out, to ensure that our farmers had more timely, accurate data to make good decisions. So that's been massively beneficial for our farmers, and in turn it's really beneficial for us. And as part of the recent survey, we did a couple of interesting stats. One is that 52% of our clients are already using some sort of cloud-based accounting software. And the other thing is just over half of them want to use more technology in their business going forward. So whether that's in an accounting sense, whether that's measuring soil temperatures, or whether it's a drone measuring a pasture level. So it's a pretty exciting area, I think, for the industry, the better use of technology. So
the challenge we've probably got is how we bring that all together into one picture, I guess.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, with so much data. James, did you want?
Yeah, look, I think the next leap forward is definitely, agri-tech and innovation, and pulling that data piece together, as you say, is critical for that next leap forward. Look, our strategy is definitely partnering. We think that gives our customers the best access to people or businesses that are actually focused on this and concentrate on it because they're the experts. So partnering definitely for us to be able to open that window, I suppose, for our customers and access.
I think through COVID we've seen the power of data and how customers having that data to hand has helped them make really quick decisions. So from an ANZ perspective, we have been using our insights data for a few years. Outside of the government, we're the largest collector of data, just with our footprint around the country, and we've been able to take benchmarking data back to our customers around how they're performing relative to peers, so they can tweak their businesses accordingly. So that's been really powerful for them to understand, how they are performing. From a customer perspective, through COVID, what we found was a desire to do more themselves, and so I think from a strategic perspective for us, it's actually helping our customers. Even through transactional means, whatever, through our Go Money app, do more for themselves rather than coming into branch. And that's something that's been driven from them personally. And we've seen some great stories of customers that perhaps were a bit nervous of technology stepping up and finding it really useful. So that opens doors for everything we've talked about today for other support that we can give them around their farming data as well. So.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think, certainly one of the things that we're looking at our business is, like, as you know, we've got we work very closely with Xero, bringing in that financial information. But like we've talked about, there's so many other sources of data that are becoming available. But it's about how can we make that really simple and easy for the farmer to consume, so that it's actually delivering up those insights. The last thing we want is multiple different sources of data that don't connect up, and how can we sort of avoid that double handling or double entry of data. So it's a really exciting space for us as that data is becoming available, that we can sort of connect all of that up, and I think that ecosystem's only going to grow as we move forwards.
Yeah. Fantastic. It's great to hear all of your perspectives. Thank you very much. That is all we have time for today. A ton of helpful information on how farmers can leverage their farming team to create sustainable outcomes for the future. A massive thank you to our panellists, Dave, Sarah, James and Anne-Marie. I suggest visiting the Fieldays banking partner pages to find out what your bank is doing in this space. Thank you for joining us today for our last episode of Beautiful Business powered by Xero. For now, take care, be kind, look after one another, kia kaha.